Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. This is the first episode in a series where myself and my friend, Luke, will be talking about some various political issues from our own stances, which are generally similar, although I'm sure we will occasionally disagree on some stuff. Right now, we don't quite have a working title. We were thinking about MALP. It stands for Michael and Luke Podcast, which is, of course, a bit of a misnomer, seeing as this isn't really going to take the form of a podcast exactly, seeing as it's going to be much shorter than your traditional podcast. But
it is very creative, though.
Yes, that is true. I mean, who ever came up with the idea of two guys talking about politics before? And on an unrelated note, we're going to be talking about two guys talking about politics for our first segment, aren't we, Luke?
Yes, that's right. So our first topic is the Trump-Biden debate tomorrow. This is going to be a preview of what to expect. We're basically going to go through the topics the two candidates are going to discuss tomorrow and basically talk about what each needs to do and each needs to improve on, I guess, because obviously on some topics Trump is better, some topics Biden's better. So do you want to tell us what the first thing is, Michael?
Yeah, why not? So the first thing they're going to be talking about is Trump and Biden's records. So obviously quite a broad topic, looking at the history of the candidates. And I guess we should start with the man, the legend, the future president, Joe Biden, even though he's not the first one mentioned. Trump's record, probably going to talk about that maybe a bit longer. I don't know. What do you think about Biden? Do you think there's something he should be hiding?
Yes, he needs to hide a lot of things. I mean, but to be honest, both have got a lot of skeletons in their closet, haven't they?
Yeah, to be honest, I will say, it's kind of bothersome to me that you're starting things off by not talking about policy. And I do realise that personalities are important, but it's kind of setting things off on the wrong track to be like, okay, the first thing we're going to talk about, not, healthcare, not the economy, not anything like that. We're going to talk about you two as individuals. I mean, I know that that's kind of an important thing, but I feel like there's already enough focus on individualism or individual attributes in politics, but whatever.
There's not going to be a lot of policy discussion, I don't think.
No, yeah.
And this, basically, Trump is just going to slam Biden for all the things he's done, and Biden's going to slam Trump for all the things that he's done. And we'll get it out of the way. The question really is, I guess, will Trump talk about Biden's role in the 1994 crime bill? Because that is a bill that Biden was instrumental in passing.
Yeah.
And Trump has campaigned this year, very interestingly, in like a kind of a juxtaposition to his rhetoric on Black Lives Matter, on getting African Americans out of jail and helping them, and that is going to be interesting to see if he goes at Biden for that. As for Biden, he can just attack basically anything that Trump's done or said. It'll be quite easy for him to do.
It is another example of what we wouldn't like about Biden would be what we would perceive to be his more moderate attributes, whereas of course the Republican strategy is always, regardless of who the Democrats nominate, to try to present them as the socialist antichrist out to destroy America. That I would expect he's going to more so try to present Biden as this arch progressive socialist, whatever else, play on white people's fears about Black Lives Matter. Although I do think that one exception to that is that Trump might go out of his way to try and present Biden as less of a populist candidate. So I think, Trump will maybe point towards, say, the Obama administration didn't help poor working class people. Maybe he'll say that, but I doubt he'll do anything kind of going into Biden's issues with race. And honestly, I don't think with women either. I mean, that would obviously be extremely hypocritical to do that, but I don't think hypocrisy would stop Trump. Trump's best bet, I think, is to try and feed into the resentment that some people who, don't like the Democratic establishment would have towards Biden as an establishment candidate.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do, but he hasn't really done that this year. Like, that's what he did in 2016. He was all over that, saying how Hillary Clinton is elitist. That was basically his campaign strategy.
Which is crazy, because I can't think of anyone more anti-establishment than the first woman nominee of a major party.
I know, right? But that's the thing. This time around, it's all been about Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And they're coming, literally, he said that if Joe Biden's elected, the suburbs will be destroyed. He's taken a very different path to last time. But I think we should move on to the second point, which is, of course, the Supreme Court. Now, this wasn't going to be on... Chris Wallace selected these topics ahead of the debate, and I don't think this was going to be on his list until, of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And now we have a nominee for the Supreme Court, Amy Barrett. I guess Trump's going to say, yeah, I'm going to nominate her because, there's a gap. She's a very good judge, whatever.
She's the best judge. Trump always picks the best judges.
Oh, he definitely does. And it's going to be interesting to see what Biden does here, because he will get asked, if you win the election, are you going to pack the court? Because that's what some Democrats have been talking about. And he's probably going to say no, because he's Joe Biden, and the Democrats have shown in the Senate they don't really want to do that because they're the Democrats. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what his stance on this is, because he's going to have to come out fighting somehow against Trump's Supreme Court pick.
I do think it might just be a case of, regarding the actual nomination of somebody to the Supreme Court, it's just going to be one person saying, you're a hypocrite, and the other person saying, no, you're a hypocrite. Like, Trump's going to go, well, he wanted Obama to be able to nominate his pick, but now he doesn't want me to be able to. And then Biden's going to go, well, he didn't want Obama to nominate his pick, but now he wants to nominate a pick instead. You know, even though I do think one side in that argument is much more correct, which would be Biden's side. However, regarding things outside of that, like what is going to be the Democratic strategy, I do think this is one context where I can understand Democrats wanting to present themselves as the more kind of passive, meat, good guy party. What I would prefer, which I think is maybe unlikely to happen, is that there's for them to actually be super Machiavellian and present themselves as the party who's going to say, well, you know, if the Republicans want to be evil, we're just going to accept that in the run-up to the actual election. Because I think the problem is the media is so crazy at this point that when the Democrats behave half as evilly as the Republicans, the Democrats get absolutely slandered. So I think it kind of makes sense within an election year for the Democrats to be like, okay, we know what the media's like. If we start throwing our weight around like the Republicans do, we're just going to get presented as bullies and all that kind of stuff.
That is true, but their base really wants to do something about the Supreme Court pick. You know, it's the only thing stopping like Roe versus Wade from going.
I know, yeah.
And so their base are really fired up. Like, they were all the fucking wine moms who voted for Biden, who are saying yes, Queen about Kamala Harris, want Biden to be strong on this. They want to say him to say, you know, I'm going to fucking pack the court. I don't care about norms or whatever. For years and years, liberals have been told how important the Supreme Court is. You must vote because of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's kind of the weird thing.
Yeah, and now there's an opportunity to, you know, reshape the Supreme Court. And if Biden says, no, I'm not going to do that, then they're going to be very annoyed. That's why I say it's interesting. He's Joe Biden, so he's probably not going to pack the court. But like, yeah, it's a tough one for him. So maybe this will be an area where Trump comes out on top.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to be the case of people being inclined to support Trump who would otherwise support Biden, but rather the question is, will Biden alienate some people who might otherwise have voted for him? And I mean, I do also think that there is the fact that Biden really has three different groups of people he's trying to appeal to. There's the kind of moderate, liberal Washington Post people or whatever who, you know, would love Hillary Clinton. Then there's the progressives who by and large he seems to have given up on. And then there are the moderate Republicans who the Democrats seem to be much more interested in courting. And I do think based on that last category, it's probably more likely that Biden is going to try and present himself as, look, Trump's being a bad person, Trump's being a bully, Trump's being the kind of person that is, you know, he's probably going to say against America or, you know, against the constitutional values and things like that. And all the moderate Republicans Biden's going to support would be in that case much more likely to be like, yes, very, very correct, Biden. Whereas obviously if he says, we're going to stack the Supreme Court, we're going to have more abortions, mandatory abortions, then that probably wouldn't work. So
yeah, I know, but it's a tricky situation he's got himself into. But yeah, he's going for the moderate Republicans. So yeah, you're right. He's probably just going to say, nah, I won't back the Supreme Court. But, you know, he'll finger wag the Republicans. You should not do this. You're all hypocrites. And, of course, that won't matter at all. And that's why his base will get upset with him. But, you know, they'll still vote for him, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I don't think this is going to be too much of a make or break thing. And speaking of being broken, let's talk about America's response to COVID-19, the third topic that's going to be brought up. And an interesting one, because it would be a really great opportunity to make a meaningful critique of America's healthcare system, which is going to be considerably neutered when the two candidates involved are Trump's vague, I don't like Obamacare because it's got the word Obama in it, but I don't really have any meaningful alternative that I've ever even presented, versus Biden's, I like Obamacare because it's kind of better than what it was before.
Obviously, Donald Trump has, you know, absolutely fucked it. 200,000 Americans have died because of coronavirus. It's genuinely incredible that he's even still in this race after what has happened. But of course, you know, the Republican Party doesn't really care. They'll vote for him, whatever. But looking at the polls, we can see that in Minnesota and Wisconsin, 3 weeks ago, I saw this poll. Joe Biden holds a 52 to 41% lead over Donald Trump in terms of who would you trust to do a better job on the coronavirus. That is pretty crucial because, yes, although Trump is still kind of in it, Biden is clearly better on this issue, and he should walk this. Like, Biden should absolutely destroy Trump on the coronavirus topic.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think one of the strengths of Biden is that he doesn't have a cult of personality, which I think is something which can be very advantageous when you're dealing with something which requires a lot of specialist knowledge. Because while I'm not suggesting that Trump took control of the coronavirus response and was like, I'm going to be in charge, I imagine Trump's effect is probably one that the opinion of experts, well, one, I think expert opinion is more likely to be alienated, and two, I think it's much more likely to be ignored. Whereas Biden, who does not have this massive cult of personality around him, who probably is much more inclined to just say, okay, whatever, lower rung people think is the best plan is probably what we're going to do. I think in response to coronavirus, that would probably be the more effective strategy. So I think that's why people would be more likely to trust Biden. And I do think, to be honest, I could maybe see people not trusting, even though I think Medicare for all would be a better system for a variety of reasons regarding COVID, and obviously had the case of people not wanting to go to their doctors to get tested because going to doctors costs money. The fact that Bernie does have much more of a personality-oriented following might also put people off. And it might be one case where having a completely boring, middle-of-the-road candidate who kind of doesn't feel like he stands for anything individually might actually be a benefit, because people will think, well, I trust that he would probably just go with whatever the experts think on the COVID issue.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if Bernie was running, whether he would have better numbers.
Yeah, that would be a much more interesting conversation.
Yeah, because obviously his Medicare for all thing would help in the case of coronavirus. Who knows whether, well, maybe the American voters wouldn't think that. I don't know.
It would be nice to see Biden doing a bit more progressive signalling with his healthcare policies, which he hasn't done so far, but
yeah, it would be nice.
It would make sense given everything that's happened.
That's all it'll be. It'll just be signalling. He has shown he just has no desire at all to do anything about America's healthcare system. But up next is probably the most important topic, which is weird because it's fourth on the list that Chris Wallace has selected, which is the economy. And like pretty much every election, the economy is the number one topic, even in a year which has seen a global pandemic kill, hundreds of thousands of Americans. I saw a poll which said that for 37% of Americans, the economy is still the most important topic, and coronavirus was about 19%, I think. So yeah, the economy, it's still massive. And again, this is the issue for Biden. This is, I think, his one really big weak spot, because it is the most important issue. Like I said, but going back to that Minnesota-Wisconsin poll I was talking about earlier, him and Trump are actually tied when it comes to who would you trust to do a better job on the economy. 45% for Biden, 45% for Trump. And I think I've looked at quite a few polls, and this is the one thing that Biden is underperforming against Trump on. It's not riots or disorder in cities, which we'll get onto next. It is the economy, and it is the most important topic. So this is a big deal for him. He has to do well on this. This is probably the most important section of the debate for him. And he's got a bit of help, because just yesterday we had a breaking New York Times story that Donald Trump in 2016 and 2017 only paid $750 in federal income tax, which is remarkably low for someone so rich, of course, and that's why it should, it should get headlines, and it has. And he has a great opportunity to frame that bit of news in terms of how the economy in America does not work for the middle class or the working class, how those people have been left behind. And Donald Trump said he'd do something about it. He hasn't. And you can see he's still the same old guy, swindling the American public and doing whatever he likes, not caring about them. So this is a great opportunity for him. And I hope he takes it, but, I mean, who knows? What do you think?
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I think, again, I agree with you that it would definitely be a good opportunity to show that Donald Trump. But the thing is, I feel like the issue is the people who think Trump is good at managing the economy, they think he'll be good at that because of his ruthlessness, because of the association with things like the art of the deal. And I do think, obviously, Trump had that famous quote when he was told something about not paying any income tax. He said, that's because I'm smart. And there was actually the classic Fine Brothers channel where they have the people react to things. They had elders react to the election, and all of the Trump supporters who were watching that agreed with Trump saying that. They actually enthusiastically supported it. So one said, see, that's why Trump is so great, because he's a good businessman, because he knows about tax loopholes and how not to pay tax. And it's crazy. That's what it's like. It's a shame, I think, that it will be probably more about personal things when it comes to Donald Trump, because I was watching the famous clip of Bill Clinton where I don't know if you've seen it, where he's debating George Bush Sr. and he gets asked the question, how has the national debt affected you personally? And if it hasn't, how can we, trust you to care about what the American people are going through? I don't know if you've seen it. Basically, Bill Clinton gives a very good response on a kind of, with regards to emotional intelligence. But there was one thing which I'd never really picked up on before, because I've seen him, respond quite a few times. He says, he kind of stops halfway through his response, says, one of the things I want to stress is that this isn't about me as an individual and how I've experienced national debt, it's that right now we're in the grips of a flawed economic theory. And then he goes on to explain what trickle-down economics is and why it is not a valid theory, why it actually hurts the middle class and things like that. And I was thinking, it's kind of crazy, but, because obviously nowadays Bill Clinton, I think, is associated with kind of the establishment, and kind of viewed very similar to Joe Biden as somebody who progressive wouldn't really want. But that kind of thing of stopping your response where you're talking about yourself as a person and saying, but it's also important to stress, this is about a theory that is being operated on, the presumptions of this theory being operated on, that making the rich richer will make everyone else richer. And that theory has been disproven empirically. I hope people will be smart enough to actually pick up on that. And I wish that politicians would trust that people would be smart enough to pick up on that and just say, this is about the theory that is being operated on. The other thing I think that needs to be stressed is the Republicans have never ever shrunk the deficit. Donald Trump has again left America with a much worse deficit. So basically the Republicans have consistently been the worst people at managing the economy, at least as far as the debt is concerned.
Yeah, well, in the deficit, I don't think anybody really cares about that nowadays. I mean, maybe back in the 90s.
Well, that's the thing, because it used to be the case that like the debt was the only way anyone could understand economic performance. Yes. Whereas now, and to be fair, this is kind of a good thing, that now it's much more about growth and jobs, which is more important because it has been pointed out. And I think the thing is, in the UK, we're probably still in a bit too much of a debt mindset.
I know, definitely.
I still do people, like, that's why we have austerity as a thing, because it's like, we've got to have austerity so we reduce the debt, even though, like I say, economic growth and jobs are far more important than debt, because if you've got economic growth, the debt will pay for itself. Anyway.
Yeah, so, well, I just want to go back to what you were saying before about the Fine Bros thing, and Trump supporters going, yeah, he's smart, he knows all the tax loopholes. Well, the extension from that thinking would be, when he becomes president, he can close all that, he can sort all that. That's why Biden's got a great opportunity this time round, because he can say to Trump, you've been president for 4 years, you took advantage of these loopholes that rich people in America can take advantage of, and you still haven't done anything about it. And that is something that obviously Hillary Clinton could not say 4 years ago because he wasn't president. Now Trump has been president. He can make this argument. Look, he hasn't done anything about this. He does not care about the working people of this country. He only cares about his rich buddies, in Manhattan, where he's from, and all of that kind of popular stuff, which is true. And that is why I think it is a great opportunity for him on the economy. The area where he is weakest when it comes to the polls, this is a great chance for him to knock it out of the park. But then again, his brain is like mush. Yeah. So who knows at the end of the
day. I will say this. I've seen Biden have lucid moments. I will say this, the Biden dementia thing, it's overhyped insofar as the problem is Biden does have really bad, let's say, senior moments, but then he does have other moments where he does seem to be able to talk quite forcefully and quite clearly.
Do you remember the debate he had with Bernie? The last debate, and he actually spoke normally, and it was kind of crazy. He didn't seem like he had dementia. And, Trump has said he should get drug tested, which is what he said to Hillary Clinton 4 years ago as well. And, I don't know, maybe if Bernie was running, would he say that? Probably. Because, that's just a tactic he has. The thing is with Trump, he also probably has a bit of dementia as well. And
that's the thing. Trump is not.
I mean, we're talking about all these issues, and I just mentioned Biden's brain is mush, so maybe he doesn't nail the economy thing. But we could just have like a senior moment debate where
that would be fantastic.
The candidates are just fucking talking nonsense, and nobody can really tell what's going on. And at the end of it all, we just sit back and think, well, but that was crazy. There is a possibility of that happening.
They talk about like women syncing up their menstrual cycles. It'll be like that, but for dementia, where kind of being in the presence of each other will cause an enhancing effect, and they'll just end up speaking in their own little language, understanding each other personally.
Yeah, but the debate could be replicated in nursing homes across America.
Suddenly, you'll have like already old people vote loads, but it'll be even higher this time because it really spoke to me, that debate.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, this election, that's what it is. It is two competing factions. A liberal boomer type against a right-wing boomer type going against each other. The liberal boomer types look to be coming out on top, and I think part of that is due to the coronavirus pandemic. Obviously boomers are quite old, pandemic affects them, so they're going to sway towards a guy in Biden who actually they see as competent. So that's the economy basically. Again, I think it is the most important topic. Let's see what happens. But a topic which has got a lot of press over the last month or so is race and violence in US cities. This was a tactic of Trump for the last few years to stoke violence, show, I guess, radical leftist Antifa, Black Lives Matter, anarchists, all of that shit, going into these US cities, destroying property, and then somehow linking it back to fucking Joe Biden.
Which makes sense.
Which is, it's a stupid strategy. Maybe if Bernie Sanders was the nominee, that would work. But it doesn't work with Biden. We can see that in the polls. I'll reference that poll again from Minnesota and Wisconsin. Who do you trust more, Biden or Trump? When it comes to law and order, Biden beats Trump by 1%. When it comes to violent crime, Biden beats Trump by 2%. When it comes to handling protests, Biden beats Trump by 9%. So,
Blimey.
people I think were desperate, particularly like right-wing people and centrist people. You had the likes of Andrew Sullivan wrote an article which was the trap the Democrats walked right into. And there's a picture of a group of black people surrounded by a fire and, implying that, hey, look, the Democrats are going to be perceived as, the radical Antifa party playing right into Trump's hands. But it was a case of, I guess, pundits projecting their anxieties onto the electorate, because he is known as quite a racist guy. So that's what he thinks America's like. And same for Jonathan Chait. He tweeted a couple of weeks ago, the freest of freebies would be for Biden to denounce Robin DiAngelo. That would get media attention. Robin DiAngelo was the person who wrote the book White Fragility. People really warmed to the idea that Biden was losing to Trump when it comes to the fucking riots and so on, but it's not. So this is an issue. You would think, this plays right into Trump's hands, and it also may do because it's Chris Wallace who's hosting this debate, and he's part of Fox News.
Yeah.
And the fact that this topic is called race and violence in United States cities,
I guess it doesn't bode well for the presumptions that will go into the question.
Yeah, Democratic senators have complained that the fifth topic conflates the issue of race and violence, which it definitely does.
Yes.
So it's like you would think, well, this plays into Trump's hands, but according to the polling, that's really not the case. So I think Biden will be fine here, really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the issue is that Biden can only. It's an issue where Biden will struggle to take a strong stance, which I think can be an issue because I do think. It's kind of weird to think that anyone would have a moderate position because it kind of seems like an issue where there's loads of people screaming against each other. So obviously you've seen Biden say, I don't support defunding the police and things like that, which is a thing which makes sense to him to say, I think, from a political standpoint, whether or not you think it does from a moral standpoint. But the only thing he can really do is position himself in opposition to other people. So he can say, I'm not, one of those crazy Antifa people who's an anarchist and a communist and wants to completely defund the police, but I'm also not Donald Trump or something like that, and he's going to have to talk about reasonable checks and balances to the police, which I think even then, though, I suspect he won't. I think it is kind of going to be a situation where he's probably not going to offer any proactive solutions to the problem, because I think any solutions that you could possibly offer would have to be to an extent radical. For example, one thing I hear people say, which I think is a very reasonable thing, is all police officers must wear body cameras at all times. If at any point it's claimed that their body camera malfunctioned or something like that, they should immediately be fired because body cameras shouldn't, like some of that, which is a perfectly reasonable, I think, solution. But obviously, I just think it's at the same time a very absolute solution. I don't see Biden doing it. I see Biden kind of going down the moderate path, not offering any absolute statements one way or the other, which I do think is probably not going to bother too many people. But I don't think it will embolden.
No, not his voters.
Nobody's going to be enthusiastic about it, which is, fine, I think. Basically, Biden's going to be playing the defensive. Trump is going to be obviously saying lots of absolute statements, saying lots of radical statements, saying lots of extreme statements, and all Biden's going to have to do is absorb the damage, like Russia in 1941.
Yeah. He's just going to be like, come on, man, that's ridiculous. I pledged to put $300 million, I think that's the figure, into the police forces to help police reform, and he'll go down that tried and tested path.
Although I think the only other thing he could do, which would be a good attack, would be to point out the obvious, which is that this is all happening under a Trump administration.
Yes, he's got to do that. I mean, that's a fucking layup. He has to do that. And it's what many people have pointed out. Like, that contradiction has to be pointed out by him. But again, he's senile, so maybe...
Yeah. One of my favourite quotes from the take on the 2017 UK election was there was a tweet from the Conservatives that said, Jeremy Corbyn says sky-high immigration will continue under Labour. And the person responding said, continue from who? Which is, that's the thing. I do think that the funny thing about Conservatives is I think Conservatives are very bad at being the incumbents, which is one reason why it's very strange that we've had an incumbent Conservative party for a decade in the UK now. But I think Conservatives are terrible at being incumbents because Conservatives like to complain a lot, despite the fact that the left are generally perceived as the, snowflake generation, whatever else. The left really is, interested in complaining, but also very much interested in offering solutions. That's like, the left, I think, spends far more time talking about what they want and what they think would be good, whereas I think Conservatives, by and large, spend most of their time complaining about things. So they won't say, for example, this is what we want with regards to the police force. They'll just say, I've had it with these black thugs and whatever else, Or maybe they wouldn't say the black part because that doesn't work as a dog whistle. I've had it with these thugs tearing away.
That's a much better dog whistle.
So for example, a left-wing person would say, like, we want an immigration policy that helps to incorporate a manageable number of people while benefiting the British economy. Whereas the Conservative position is, too many immigrants. Like, that's the thing. The Conservative position is just complaining, which is why it's really bad. And they don't know what to do when they're the incumbents, because all they can do is say, like, there's too much crime in this country. There's, too many radicals in this country. There's too much immigration in this country. There's too much poverty in this country. And it's like, but you've been in charge for the last 5 years.
Exactly. And if you look at Trump's tenure, he's only done one major thing, which is the tax bill, which came out in 2018, I want to say. Like, at the start of 2018, that's when he passed it, cutting taxes for millionaires and billionaires and all of that stuff, and corporations. But there's been nothing else. He wanted to destroy Obamacare. He failed at that, and now they're going through the courts.
Yeah, he really hasn't done
much.
I
mean, that's the thing. Republican presidents now are kind of muted because they can't really do anything. Because anything they want to do will be incredibly unpopular. So, they're in a bit of an issue, and that's why they're really prioritizing the courts. And the Supreme Court is so important to them because that's how they can get their agenda through without it, being on there. Trump can, pre-existing conditions? That's what it is. Yeah, he can get rid of that in the courts, or the Trump administration can, and because it's decided by the courts, it doesn't come back on him.
Yeah, no
that's the only way they can do stuff. Exactly. You are right on that. Yes.
Anyway, speaking of the great systems, what about the integrity of the election? The final, and I guess a very nice topic to conclude on for the first debate, the integrity of the elections. Well, that's surely going to be one which will put the focus on Trump.
Well, Biden needs to be strong because apparently, according to polls I've seen, when Democrats see that Trump could steal the election, their voter turnout decreases. So Biden has to be strong and come out and say, there will be no stealing of the election. You may try to get away with it if you lose, but you won't be able to. And all this talk about the integrity of the election is just Donald Trump trying to scare voters. It's complete nonsense. I think if he comes out with that message, that'll be really good. It'll, assume a position of authority. It'll give Democrats an authority. Because, undoubtedly, if Trump loses, he's going to try and win.
Yeah.
Basically, he's not going to go without a fight. And so you got to frame it, again, Biden. The crucial thing is framing. You got to frame it in a way which shows that, if he tries to do this, he'll be clearly in the wrong.
No, yeah.
And he's going to come out very strongly against it.
Obviously. I think that, I agree that would be the best plan, kind of not to present it. And I guess that's the thing. That needs to be a case where Biden can't just moralize. He can't just say, well, if Trump does that, it'll be really bad and I'd be against it. He has to say, no, he's not going to do it. We're not going to let it happen because this is America. We believe in democracy, we believe in peaceful transfer of power. Therefore, if he
doesn't have the authority, essentially. Yeah. That's the line. Yeah. He does not have the authority in terms of the integrity of the election. You keep hammering that message, and I think that'll work. And obviously Trump's going to be put on the back foot, but he'll just say what he's been saying throughout the last few months about he's saying he can't see a possible way he can lose. He can't conceive of it. So it'll be, and to be fair, that's exactly the same thing happened in 2016, where he was asked in the debates about, are you gonna? If you lose, will you accept it? And he was like, no, I don't think so. I don't know. I can't see how she's going to win. But the difference is this time he's president, so that's an issue. So overall, looking at the 6 topics, again, you would expect Biden to come out on top in probably, I'd say like 5 out of 6. But then again, we have to mention
the cognitive dice roll at play.
Yes. I mean, this could just be the most hilarious debate ever. Like, all this talking, like I said, just could be for nothing.
Like, the thing is, it's sometimes weird that you can hear Trump say something that makes no sense at all, and you don't realize how this would, like, when you just kind of see a quote written from Trump, like a written quote from Trump, word for word, and you think, that is just insane. And yet when you hear him say it, it doesn't sound as insane. I think it's because Trump just comes across as a crazy ranting person, whereas I think the issue is, with Biden, you notice his crazy moments a bit more, because he tries to sound more official and kind of tries to sound more presidential, which means that whenever he has a, the thing, we hold these truths to be, the thing, it comes across very awkward. Whereas I think Trump is better at, just recovering.
He stops himself mid-sentence. That'll be interesting. There should be like a bet on how many times will Biden stop himself in the middle of a speech. Yeah. And maybe he'll talk about the jazz player again, like he did at the Democratic debates. Turn on the jazz music late at night so the kids can hear it, so they can read better. Yeah. Maybe we'll get one of those moments. And that's the thing. Yeah, Trump can style it out because he's just got that confidence. With Biden, because that's the thing. People, the sensible people will be looking at Biden and they'll see that and they'll be like, oh my God. Like, Trump's base, they don't care. He can say whatever. Yeah. And they'll be fine. Biden, if there is a cognitive issue, for both candidates, it's going to hurt him more, for sure.
Yeah.
But maybe because people hate Trump, maybe it won't matter. People will still vote for him.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about these debates. We talked about all these issues, but like the camps are pretty set.
Well, yeah,
the polls have not moved.
The only real thing in play is not are the people who want to vote for Trump going to vote for Trump. This entire debate and all three of these debates are going to be a matter of Biden trying to get more people to support him enthusiastically enough to vote, and Trump trying to get people to be unenthusiastic about Biden. Because the question is just going to be not are people going to want to vote for Biden really, but how much are people going to want to vote for Biden? Because there's not, like we say, there's not really any chance of people who are Trump supporters at this point being like, actually, you know what? Seeing that debate made me realize Biden has some good points. But there might be a lot of people who, let's say, for example, are moderate Republicans who are thinking, I'm not going to vote for Trump, but, because I don't like him because I'm a moderate Republican. But Biden, he doesn't quite hit me where I live. Or, of course, progressive. Yeah. So basically, it's going to be a case of Biden trying to win everyone who isn't a moderate Democrat, the progressive Democrats and the moderate Republicans, and convincing them to vote for him, rather than convincing Trump supporters to vote for him.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Trump could just be so mental.
Yeah.
Again, that I could convince people who were like, I don't know, I'm going to sit this one out. I was like, oh shit, no, I got it. Because that's the thing. Like, so many more people tune into these debates than, follow the news from day to day. And after the debates in 2016, Hillary Clinton got a boost each time.
Yeah.
She performed better, according to everybody who watched the debates. Her poll lead increased. Again, it might be the same thing. It's a strange one because Biden has more to lose, but he also has more to gain.
And also, I think the other thing is that the poll results seem to have fluctuated much less than they have with the Trump and Clinton. Biden has been very steady
it is more
in the
stable.
polls, which I think to me suggests if he gets a boost up, that will probably hold steady too. Because it seems so it actually does even more advantage to Biden kind of. So I think, to be honest, we will see the gap widen by the time these debates are over, as long as Biden doesn't go crazy.
Probably, but probably. Well, I'd say that. I'd say it'll probably increase. Not by much, but it'll increase. That's our prediction.
Yes.
Unless, of course, Biden shits himself, which we hope won't be the case.
Imagine. Did they get toilet breaks? I guess it must be. It's America, so they presumably have 1 billion commercials, so they'll have toilet breaks.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Anyway, that is our talk about the American election. Obviously, we will have a forthcoming talk on a much more British specific topic, which will be Andrew Neil's plans for a new right-leaning 24-hour news network. So enjoy that. Until then, this has been our talk on the American election debates, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Do it! Just